Is it a red flag? It isn't red flag behavior. Put yourself in his shoes. He had no way of knowing what was going on in your head. What if you had really thought you were pregnant and now he's finding out that you didn't tell him? If you were pregnant with his child, that is life-altering. He might be freaking out a little bit, but the idea of having an unplanned child will do that. Obviously he feels the same as you do about this. He was probably caught very much off guard by seeing a pregnancy test, and that triggered his worry about somehow accidentally being a parent. Furthermore, it may have made him question the efficacy of your current birth control situation. Honestly, this is an opportunity. You both have the same conclusion, but get to it from different direction. If there is a red flag, it is that you're both not communicating effectively. What you should do is both sit down. You explain to him that you know that your UID is very effective, but you just get unreasonably worried. So you occasionally do a pregnancy test just to make yourself feel better, not because there is a real reason. And you can tell him that he's more than welcome to be included in this process. Well, while it is your potential pregnancy, if it becomes real, it is a potentially very consequential event for your sex partner. He may become a parent too. It is not a red flag. Before I had my tubes tied, I never fully got rid of a pregnancy anxiety. I took pregnancy tests while on birth control, and even when I had not had sex for weeks, because my paranoia told me all kinds of stories. I totally get it, and I totally get it that a man would freak out seeing a random pregnancy test in a bathroom, as it broadcasts to him that you were not confident in your birth control. It's worth a conversation, and maybe many conversations, which should really bring you closer. Maybe he has fears he hasn't shared with you too. These are big topics and many couples avoid them. No, I was honestly baffled. I told him it was negative. Why would I tell him? That's more of a red flag. I have tested because I was worried. My husband has known every time it's happened. I tell him when I am concerned about anything going on with my body. He's my partner. A few days later, my fiancé approached me and asked, "Why didn't you tell me you took a pregnancy test?" I was honestly baffled. I told him it was negative. Why would I tell him? Yeah, that's weird. Your behavior, not his. You are just being petty. He's asking for open and honest communication, even for the hard parts. That's a pretty amazing quality in a life partner. Telling him every time it's negative is easier than writing this post. If you can't find it in your heart to keep him updated, don't sleep with him. It's red flag behavior that you didn't tell him. Maybe he feels like it might be a red flag. It wouldn't be the first time a woman told a guy she was on B control and wasn't. Better to have everything out in the open. Maybe you should use another method with the IUD. The anxiety you go through would drive me nuts. I don't see this as a red flag. It's hard to tell what kind of energy he was bringing here, like if he was freaked out or thinks you're keeping things from him. He may feel like it's his responsibility to be in that anxiety with you, which is really a good thing. Like you shouldn't have to shoulder that alone. But if this is a monthly thing born out of anxiety, maybe you can just agree that you're going to do this regularly and you don't have to tell him every time. But you should be on the same page about what will happen if you happen to get a positive. Will you tell him? And is the trust there between you so he can relax because he knows that you will loop him in if it comes to that? I do think periodically just seeing a pregnancy test in the garbage without any context would be reasonably stress-inducing. I get you not wanting to make a whole thing about it every time though too. Hopefully there's a happy medium in there. I think it's just a communication issue. If I was him, I'd want to know if my partner is having pregnancy anxiety and is testing regularly. You should have that conversation, absolutely. It's a red flag. You don't want to have it because it indicates you may not be responsible enough to have sex, let alone dealing with the unexpected or motherhood. This feels more like a failure to communicate than a red flag. Maybe his thought process was that if you were having a pregnancy scare, you should let him know so he can worry with you, instead of you worrying alone. As a guy, the reason we care is because we have no hint on female birth control. Did the same when my wife was on the pill and saw she wasn't 100 on taking the pill every day. Negative test in the trash, but my stress level on it was insane. Yes, we were taking other precautions once it was not 100, but the stress level is always there. Nothing works every time, so it is a valid concern to both sides. We talked and decided that any negative test would get a disclosure so we both could relax. 99.9 is still 1,000 to 1 chance while doing everything right, and the tests have a window where you get false negatives early, although now I hear that is less likely. OP does not want her guy to freak out, just as OP is taking the test to quit worrying herself. Us guys don't have the same hints you ladies do. It's all in the dark for us. Say it was because you were nervous and now you are not. TLDR, guys stress too, and the stress starts with a test and no story. A quick no problems, just stress. Negative, gets us up to speed. The story matters too. The red flag I'm seeing is non-communication about a pretty huge event. Even it was negative, you felt worried enough to take it, and that is something that should be communicated in a strong relationship. If I was in his shoes, it would give me reason to think, is there any other event I consider important that she may have not told me? This leads to negative thinking that spirals into huge arguments and trust issues. Just be open about how you feel and try to consider his perspective as well, and you can avoid miscommunications. I don't think it's a red flag. It sounds like it's not a big deal to you because it's something you do often. It might feel like a bigger deal to him. I think this could be solved with a conversation. Did you ask him why it was important to him? Not a red flag. Let him experience the same anxiety and nerves you experience, even with the IUD. He wants to be part of the experience through and through. You don't have to withhold that from him. You should have told him you were taking the test because you were paranoid. As a guy, we tend to overthink. If we find a negative pregnancy test, our minds can be like, okay, but if she's been feeling off and took a test without telling me, if it came back positive, would I even get to know about it? You might not believe it, but not a lot of guys get to know immediately if their girl's pregnant or not. She might tell her friends and or her family before him. I think this is why, in genuine advice, just tell him.